Hello and welcome back to our plumbing course. I'm Joe Carswell, your instructor. This lesson is going to cover the basic hand tools used for plumbing. We've already gone through the theory and some of the function of the plumbing. Now we're going to get into the tools to make it happen. Welcome to our channel. By now we've loaded almost 100 videos onto YouTube so that anyone can have access to structured trades training resources. We are really trying to grow this channel, and the best way for that to happen is for you, the viewer, to subscribe. Also, if you learned something from these videos, don't forget to click like. So thanks for your support. Let's get back into the lesson. So whether you're working on the drain or supply side of your plumbing system, you need to cut a lot of pipe. We're cutting and routing pipe. My first tools to show you will be tools to cut this pipe. We're doing that a lot in the system. I'll start with a hacksaw. It's a very common tool to use. It has very fine teeth. A hacksaw is designed to cut metal, but it can also be used to cut other materials like copper or plastic. A lot of our pipe is plastic. It has a very fine tooth, like I mentioned. It also has a very thin blade, and it's sort of a flexible blade. This is not a tool that a beginner would use when they're cutting pipe, because accuracy and squaring up the ends of your pipe is very important, and it's difficult to do with a hacksaw if you're not very well trained with it. This is a tool you will see pipe cut with. There's a better tool to use, and that would be a PVC saw. This tool is especially made to cut plastic pipe. That could be ABS or PVC. It has fine teeth. It also has a very deep blade, and the depth of this blade will help you when you're cutting pipe, because it will sort of brace itself on the pipe as you travel through the cut. You don't get that from the hacksaw, but with this depth of blade, it makes cutting this true squared end of this pipe, which is so important when we're making our connections happen. We have even more convenient tools for cutting plastic pipe, PVC or ABS. That would be a ratcheting pipe cutter. This tool has a hardened blade on it, and it's going to work sort of like a pair of shears or scissors. If I have a pipe, I can set it in this tool, and it's going to ratchet closed a little bit every time. And when I get on the pipe, it's literally just going to shear right through that pipe. Really easy. I get a nice clean cut on the end. This is really great. Also, it's one thing to mention, this is a small size pipe. This is a 1/2 inch pipe, PVC. Pipes come in a lot of different sizes. So do the tools we use to cut them or work on them with. So this tool can be sized up for larger pipe, and it works exactly the same way. Another variation of my pipe cutter would be this cutter, and this one is a spring-loaded. It does not have the ratcheting action, so it does not have the power that I can get out of this tool. This is a great tool for cutting things like PEX plastic pipe, and I can even do a quick shot of that. It's got the same hardened blade in it, and it makes very quick work of cutting PEX pipe in the field. It's often that we're not just cutting plastic pipe, we need to cut metal pipe. If we're cutting copper, which is very common with plumbing, we can use another tool. This is a tubing cutter. It has a hardened wheel that spins and literally cuts through the pipe. It has some rollers here. So if I put my pipe in here and tighten up this roller, it's going to bring that cutter in contact with my pipe. Now, as I spin that pipe or spin the cutter around the pipe, I can twist this knob, which is forcing that cutter into that pipe. So after several turns and several tightening sequences, the pipe will literally shear off. So that's a fresh cut with a tubing cutter into copper. There's also another tool that's built into this tubing cutter, and that is a reamer. So we're always finishing out the ends of our pipes once we cut them. That would be either reaming or deburring the inside and also chamfering the outside. This tool has a reamer on it. It folds out when you need it, and you can use this in the end of that pipe to take off that sharp edge on the end and prepare this pipe for sweating into a fitting. Tubing cutters come in different sizes. I showed you one. This one is really a very small one. They can come much larger. They can also get smaller. Keep in mind, sometimes we need to cut a pipe in a small space. So these two work the same exact way, except they will turn in very tight spaces. So when you need a pipe cutter, you will choose the right size based on the size of the pipe and also how much room you have to work in. So I mentioned the reamer that's built into the tubing cutter for copper. We also need to ream and chamfer and finish out the ends of our plastic pipe. I have a special tool for that. It's a double-ended tool. This end is for chamfering the outside. This end is for reaming the inside of the pipe. So if I have a pipe, I can use this just by twisting it to ream the inside of the pipe. And then for the outside, I turn it around and twist it in this end. This gives me a finished end with no sharp edges. This is very critical when we're going through plumbing, that we end up with this condition for each end before we solvent glue it in place. Next up, I have a really cool tool that will take off the inside edge of a lot of different styles of pipe. This is a deburring tool. This tool can be used on aluminum, copper, plastic, cast iron, all of these different materials. And the way it works, this is why I'm so excited about this tool. If I've got an end, all you do is you run it around the inside of the end, just spin it around in there, and there's a very sharp blade that will cut through the inside sharp edge. It will dull it out, and now I have prepared this pipe, at least on the inside, for the next process, which will be sweating it. This tool also works on plastic, and this is a PVC pipe. This is a fresh cut edge, and a simple twist of this tool on the inside, and that's ready to go. We have to work on the outside. This tool does not work on the outside edge. That's what our chamfer tool would be for. Keep in mind, I'm going through really quickly the process of how to use these tools. I don't expect you to learn that now. This is more about introducing the tools and what they do. When we get into the process of the actual plumbing and connecting the fittings, we will go through this much slower and much more thoroughly. So at this point, I want you to identify the tools, what materials they could be used on, and kind of the gist of what we're doing with them. So next up, we have, for finishing out ends of pipe, I have files. I've got a couple files here. Actually, I have a file and a rasp. And the purpose of these tools is going to be to do by hand what some of these other tools are doing for you, which is either chamfering or deburring or reaming the inside of the pipe. So these tools will work on the inside or the outside of generally plastic or any other material. A file can actually be used on metal as well. And these tools, this particular one, has two profiles to it. Both of these files do. It has a flat side, which I would use on the outside of the pipe. And it also has an arched side. And this side I would use on the inside of the pipe. Pipes are round, they're curved. This will make good use of rounding off or taking that sharp edge off on the inside. And this is just a matter of a process of doing this by hand. And there's no magic to it. It's just a matter of working that edge until it is not sharp anymore. So this tool works better with larger pipes, and you can get into 4-inch, 6-inch PVC drains. And some of these tools are not quite as effective, and you have to go with a manual or a hand operation with that. Copper requires some very special prep. These pipes have to be super clean, and we need to polish the ends of our copper pipe. Here you see a copper end that's been polished, and copper, given any time exposed to air, is going to oxidize. It turns dull. We need to polish this just before we do the process of sweating that fitting. We're going to use a tool called a pipe brush. This tool will polish the outside of our copper pipe or tubing, or it will also polish the inside of our fittings. These will go together. We will then add flux and solder, and we will sweat these together with heat. This tool is a multi-purpose tool. It works with two very common sizes. This side is 1/2 inch, both the brush for the fitting and the brush for the pipe the outside of the pipe. This is 3/4 on this side. These are two of the most common sizes you'll see when you're plumbing. And I'd like to demonstrate this tool for you. We'll take this dull end. So I'm going to push this in my brush. I'm going to spin it a few times. And as I twist this, there's literally just a wire brush inside of here. It's polishing the end of this copper. Now this is ready. When I do my fitting, we'll put them together and sweat them. And you can see here is my fitting. This side of the brush works inside of our fitting. So both of those need to be done. We've got it in the same tool, very convenient, and we can use this over and over again. We have other tools for other type of plumbing materials. For our PEX system, I have a crimping tool. As you notice, we have two sizes on our crimping tool. It's that same 1/2 inch and 3/4, very common sizes. So this tool will do both sizes of PEX. The way this tool works is it opens and it closes very tightly. And what that process will do will be to crimp or compress this ring on this pipe that will clamp it to this fitting, and that will make this watertight. We'll go through the whole process of exactly how that gets done, but keep in mind that several parts come together and this tool will squeeze them all together and make that work. I have a tool here that goes with my crimper. It is a crimp gauge. This is basically a very simple tool to measure, to make sure that our crimping tool is working properly and that we're squeezing that ring down just right so it makes a good connection. Another tool you might see when you're working with PEX would be a PEX expander. I don't have one of those tools here, but I have a clip for you that sort of demonstrates this. Let's go ahead and roll that. I didn't have an expander tool here, so I went on the internet, I went to YouTube, and I found a great channel that is produced by a plumber. It's called Got to Learn. We've got some good close-ups here that I think will help explain this. This is what you're getting ready to see. We'll have a PEX pipe and we'll have a ring around it. Both of these will expand or stretch with a special tool that goes inside. They'll stay stretched for a very short amount of time. We'll have room and time to put our fitting in, and as they shrink back down to their original size, they'll seal up and become watertight. So let's go ahead and take a look at this in action. We've got our fitting. The part does not fit in there yet. We need to stretch it. That's what the tool's for. Several pulls of that tool, it's getting bigger, right? It's making room for our fitting. Now we have plenty of room. We put that fitting in, and now the pipe and the band are shrinking down. That's what makes our watertight seal. That's the power tool version of a PEX expander. Let's take a look at the hand tool version. So very long handles, and as you pull the handles, it's going to move those parts, which stretches the pipe, which gives us room to put our fitting in. Pipe shrinks down, seals up the fitting. Another hand tool used in plumbing is a propane torch. Whenever you're working with copper, you're sweating fittings, this tool is a must. What I have here is a propane tank, or a tank that contains propane gas. You might see a MAP gas tank as well. I'll talk about the differences of those in just a second. I've got a valve here with a trigger switch and also an igniter in here, and I have my torch tip. So when I pull this switch, it's going to not only let the gas flow, but it will also spark the gas so it will ignite. You're going to use this torch to heat copper pipes and fittings, to add some other materials, and in the process we call that sweating. We'll get into that in the plumbing process video, but keep in mind, if you're talking about the different types of gas, we have propane, which burns at a lower temperature than MAP gas. MAP gas is MAPP. That gas will burn at a higher temperature, and therefore it will heat larger or heavier or more mass than this tank will. The plumber has a preference based on what he's working on, the gauge of the pipe, and how they want to do the process. If you're a beginner, it's a good idea to start with a lower temperature propane, because it will make the process of sweating go a little bit easier. It takes a lot of skill to sweat pipes, and mastering this tool is a really important part of that. We've talked about some different ways of how to connect pipes. A lot of pipes are threaded, and to thread a pipe, oftentimes we need to grip it. So we need tools that can grip something round, right? And gripping something round with a lot of force can be a tricky thing to do. And a pipe wrench is a great tool to grip a round object. So I have a piece of plastic pipe here. Metal pipe would make more sense with a pipe wrench, but I can at least demonstrate how it works. So I have my jaws here that are very similar to other tools you might be familiar with. And these jaws can open and close based on this thumb screw here. And as I twist it this way, it's going to close them. If I twist it the other way, it will open them. Once you get the jaws set to the general size that you need for the pipe you're trying to hold, it has a feature that will open these jaws up just a little bit. And as you open those jaws, you can insert the pipe. And as you push in this direction, it's going to grip harder. So the harder I pull or push on this handle, the harder of a grip I get on my pipe. So if I was to want to tighten that pipe, I would go this direction. If I wanted to loosen it, I would have to turn it around this way. And if you go in the opposite direction, it will actually remove the pipe. So really cool feature, a cool way this tool works, and you cannot get the same grip with your hands as you can get with this tool. Sometimes you're threading something on and you just need to hold this pipe. So great tool, comes in a lot of different sizes, very useful. I've got another tool for you for gripping pipe. That's my channel lock pliers. Channel lock might be a brand name, but it explains how they work. I've got several grooves, and it has a slip joint here that will allow these jaws to be set at a certain distance from each other. So depending on the pipe you're working on, you'll set it to the most or the best range that you need, and now you can grip that pipe, right? So it has teeth on it, and these teeth will grab into the pipe. That's a good thing and a bad thing. Make sure that the pipe that you're working with can handle the stress of those teeth biting into it, and it's not a chrome finished part that's going to show in a bathroom for 20 or 30 years. Let's talk about how to set these pliers up to use them. So you can set them ideally to where they're parallel to each other. As you can see, when I set them parallel here, they're a little small for my pipe. So I'll go one size up from that. And now I have a good grip on that pipe. The second thing to think about is how wide these handles are apart. If I set this too small, then I end up with a very long reach that's very uncomfortable, right? You want to be able to hold this very steady with one hand. So part of your setting has to do with the size of the pipe. If I set it too large, then I don't get a lot of distance between these. I can get too close with my handles. So it's sort of a balance between the grip and the size of the pipe and the range of those jaws. You will see this tool used on things other than just round pipe to grip them. And I don't recommend that as a first tool to use, but if you will see it used this way, and there's a right and a wrong way. I talked about the setup. Well, I have a hex fitting here. A hex fitting has 6 sides, which means that you always have 2 parallel sides. So we talked about the jaws and the ideal setting for them being parallel. If I set these jaws parallel, I can now grip this fitting and I have full contact with 2 sides. That's ideal. All too often you'll see if you don't set this properly, I'll set a little small, and you try to grip something. Now they're not, or they're not parallel, or they're too small, basically. When I try to grip it, see how I don't have full contact? What you get now is rounding off of edges, right? This is not ideal. You're going to fail at the job that you're trying to do. So as you can see, depending on what you're doing with these pliers, there's several settings, but those simple rules about parallel jaws and also this idea of a comfortable grip makes a lot of sense and will help this tool really work for you. Now, let's talk about a tool that's better for working on hex fittings. That would be an adjustable wrench. And my adjustable wrench, like my channel lock pliers, has two jaws that are always parallel with each other. So I'm going to move this screw. It's called a thumb screw. I'm moving it with my finger. Don't give me a hard time about that. But as I move it this direction, it's going to widen the jaws. If I move it this direction, it makes them smaller. So with that adjustment, I can set it for whatever I'm working on. It's really good practice with this tool to put your fitting in with the jaws a little too big and then bring it down tight. Now we get that full contact that we talked about with our channel lock pliers, and we have less opportunity for stripping these edges or ruining this fitting. Like our pipe wrench, this is a directional tool. So we always want to turn it in this direction, or if we want to go the other way, we would move it in this direction. Like our other tools, these adjustable wrenches come in a lot of sizes, much smaller and much larger than that one. I love this one because this is Squirrel brand. What does that mean? I have no idea. I've never heard of this. This is a pretty big wrench though. And you know, this is a good time to talk about using the right tool for the right job. If I have a fitting this size, I would not bring out my Squirrel brand for this job. It's just too big, nor would I probably have enough room to work with this particular tool. There are jobs though, like I talked about my 3-foot pipe wrench, depending on what you're doing and how large your fittings or pipe is, you might need a tool this size. A lot of plumbers and a lot of different trades would have multiple sizes of the same tool to work in a lot of different situations. Moving on to other tools that you already know that plumbers use, we need to do a lot of measuring when we're plumbing, and a tape measure is a critical tool to use to make accurate cuts for lengths of pipe, to measure for certain runs, and to get all that to work properly in the end. So knowing your tape measure as a plumber is just as important as being able to sweat a copper pipe. Another tool we use to measure when we're plumbing is a level. In the presentation, you see a torpedo level. Plumbers use a bunch of different levels. They can come in different sizes. And the reason for levels for a plumber is to measure the pitch of the drains. Drains need to be set at a 2% pitch, which comes to about 1/4 inch per foot. It requires a level to verify that, to measure it, and get that right. We want all of our water to run downhill. We need a level to get that done. So there you have it. That's a bunch of tools that you'll get started with to get some basic plumbing done. Whether that's drains or supplies, these hand tools will get you pretty far in the beginning process. Also here you see a list of terms that we use when we're plumbing. And as always, I like to stress this idea of learning these terms and using them on the job site. This is what makes us professional. So thanks for watching. Our next lesson is about power tools. I'll see you there. This video is a production of Trade Skills U, all rights reserved. If you provide instruction in the construction trades and have a need for videos like these, please contact us at tradeskillsu.com.